Time now to pull up at Joel Klatt's crib, the smartest man in college football, here to talk about the NFL draft. But before we do that, I want to ask Joel a question about, and get Marcel's reaction as well, to an interesting theory I have about college football. This coronavirus is going to heavily impact recruiting. Why would a recruit, after this pandemic from Florida, want to go play at Ohio State, make his family have to do all that flying back and forth, run the risk of another pandemic, and be stuck in Ohio rather than Florida close to his family? I think this corona deal could have huge impact in recruiting. Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, I think that you're right. And Jason, it's not just because of the sentiment, which is what you're referring to, and what that could do to the family, but also just the recruiting nature of how teams have to recruit. Remember now, recruiting is very regional because all these visits that take place, the team can only bring a select number of guys on the campus for official visits. All these unofficial visits are so important and they're so vital to these programs. And generally that comes from guys that are able to drive to the university. So if you have a natural regional recruiting base, you're in a good position. Now you start talking about the cost of traveling to out-of-state games. This is where I think it gets important. We're talking about the airlines right now no longer selling middle seats. That's close to 60 to 75 seats per flight. They're going to have to make up that revenue somehow. Domestic travel, I think, is going to be inflated and get much more expensive. So it's not just about the sentiment of the coronavirus, Jason, but also the cost of traveling. If you're a kid from Florida or a kid from Georgia and you want to go play at Michigan or Ohio State or Oklahoma, the cost to your family to travel to just your home games might get exorbitant in the future because of what this virus is doing to this industry as far as the traveling goes, in particular the airlines.
I see where you're coming from, Jason. What you're saying has legs, but there are so many unknowns, and I just want people to keep perspective. A month ago, look at your life, how it was compared to how it is now. And a month or a year from now, who knows what that will look like? And I think a lot of us are expecting something worse, but there is a chance that things can go back to the norm or even be better. We don't know that just because of how fluid this is. But let's go back to the high school athlete, especially these top recruits. They're natural risk takers. Let's go back to when we were 17, 18, when I was getting recruited. I didn't have that understanding of the global perspective. I just thought about myself. So if I wanted to go to a school, I knew that the school wasn't coming to me, so I had to travel to the school. I think if you're not going to move Alabama from Alabama, you're not going to move Duke from Duke, that player that qualifies to go to that school is still going to take that travel, even if there is a certain risk that comes with it.
I just think every coach in Florida, Florida State, Florida, University of Miami are going to be telling those Florida kids, you really going to make your family go up to Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, wherever, Ball State, wherever. It's not happening. All right, let's move to Tua Tagovailoa. There's only one question about Tua in my mind, his health. Everybody loves the kid. There's reason to love the kid. He's a phenomenal player. We were talking to Warren Moon in a commercial break. Warren Moon loves him. But the injuries. Joel, I think the injuries are a red flag that teams shouldn't ignore. What say you?
Well, it's not just the injuries, but I'll go a step further, actually. And Jace, think about it. All the injuries, at least the significant ones, were born out of the same problem. And that problem is actually in his own mind. Let me explain. I love Tua's game, but he thinks he's more elusive than he is. And because of that, he doesn't avoid completely. So when he's trying to get away from the defense and run away and create, what happens is he gets caught and he gets wrapped up from behind and his ankles get caught under defenders. And then that hip got fractured in the same exact style of vein. So when he thinks he is more elusive than he is, and that's how all three of his major injuries and surgeries happen, there's a problem with his lack of adjustment in his game. He cannot play like that moving forward. If he plays more like Drew Brees in the NFL, I think he can have a long career. But if he thinks he's Russell Wilson, then we're going to see these injuries pop up again. Remember, 2 tightrope surgeries in his ankle and a fractured hip with that major surgery on that hip. Love his game, love his decision-making and his accuracy, but he has to change the fact that he thinks he's more elusive than he actually is.
Great points. I actually want him to play like Russell Wilson. If you look at Russell Wilson, he knows exactly how elusive he is, to the point where he's never getting a clean hit from a defender because he learned to slide. He played baseball. He learns to avoid contact. He uses the sideline to his advantage and steps out. All those are the type of things that Tua needs to incorporate into his game. So if I'm the Chargers or the Dolphins, the first phone call might not even come from the general manager. It'll be from Russell Wilson telling him to incorporate that into his game. But to a greater point, it's not a red flag. A red flag would mean you would stop your pursuit of Tua. You should not do this. Obviously, you have to be cautious when you're talking to him and trying to bring him into your program. But you can't have a mindset that is bogged down by injury, because injury is like, it's limiting. It doesn't give you freedom. And I'm not just talking physically. I'm talking about mentally. You can't go out there and mash the gas and apply the brakes. You won't be the same player. So he has to have freedom of thought in terms of injury, and the organization that drafts him need to have that same freedom of thought.
All right, let's move out to Oregon and the big kid, Justin Herbert. A lot of draft speculation about him. Well, are the Dolphins going to move up? Is another team going to move up? Who loves Justin Herbert? I know one guy that doesn't like Justin Herbert as much as all the other draft analysts. Our very own Joel Klatt doesn't see Herbert as a first-round talent. Please explain.
Well, first of all, I think he's going to get selected in the first round. If I was a decision maker in the NFL, that would not be the case for the team I was making decisions for. And here's why. It's very simple. He has all the requisite skill, the talent in the arm. Yes, all of that is absolutely true. There's two main things that concern me about his game, though. Guys, the first and foremost is that he does not anticipate throws. I think this is born out of the fact that he has had such a great arm his entire life. So he's never been forced to anticipate windows. Anticipatory throws are what win in the NFL, in particular in crunch time when you get into the National Football League, and he just doesn't do that. He also flinches when the rush gets close to him. His eyes go down, and that's a huge red flag, if you will, caution flag, if you will, moving up in the draft for that. The other aspect of this is that I want to see a guy that's played a lot of football in college get better during the course of his career. And the frustrating part when you watch his tape, not just in 1 year or the other year, when you watch it throughout his career, he makes the exact same mistakes from a decision-making standpoint when he was a freshman as he does his last year in college. And he played a ton of football. That's troublesome if you're a decision maker, like you're putting me in that boat right there. So, no, I would not draft him in the first round, but there are teams that love him in the first round, and he will likely get selected and probably over-selected near the top 10. Last thing I'll say about Herbert is that if you think of Joe Burrow as a surgeon, right, and he's out there and he's just carving defenses up with precision and his decision-making, Justin Herbert is a blunt instrument. He's out there with a sledgehammer trying to say, I'm going to fit this ball in regardless of what the defense is with my talented arm. And I don't think that style of game works in the National Football League.
Woo! You wrote that down. Sometimes we can overthink things. The dude is 6'6", 240 and got wiggle and can move. He has a rocket arm. It puts me into like a Josh Allen conversation, maybe even a stretch with Carson Wentz. And if you look at his career, he did get better. However, that junior year really threw people off when all the spotlight was on him and we wanted to see that ascension. We didn't see it the junior year. But last year, a guy who only lost 2 games, first week at Auburn, and then a close one on the road, Arizona State, and wins the Rose Bowl and is clearly the best player in the Rose Bowl. I just don't think that evaluators need to overthink this. The guy has all the physical tools. If you don't think he has the skills yet, you have the best athletic base to build upon in this year's draft. So like you said, he will get drafted in the first round, and I think that team will smile for many years to come.
I agree with Joel for the first thing you said, Marcellus. He's 6'6". I don't like quarterbacks over 6'5". I don't like quarterbacks 6 feet and under. I have biases. I believe in the 6'2" to 6'4" quarterback. Show me the 6'6" guy. This little up this league. This goes all the way back. Like Dan McGuire is around my age. Never bought into it. Yeah.
The height I like in this draft, Joe Burrow. whatever height he is, Joe Burrow, that's the one I like. He's the best quarterback in the draft. Bar none.
All right,
It's
well, we
funny
got to go. Not everyone agrees with you
Okay,
there.
I'm about to say that junior year of Joe Burrow is not being considered, but we're going to use the junior year against Justin Herbert. I'm just saying.
Listen, I could explain that.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. And be sure to check out more of the best clips from Speak For Yourself, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.